If you like this one, please like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe? The word is that? Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Workbench. This is a follow-up to the last video where I reviewed the 8BitDo arcade stick as it comes out of the box. Today, I'm going to walk you through a complete teardown of the stick, and not just changing out the parts, but modding the buttons and the joystick themselves. Once I get this open, you'll also see the default cable management isn't great, so I'll go over how to improve that as well, making future modding projects much easier. Alright, so to get into the case, you're first going to need a T10 torx screwdriver. I'm technically using a T10H or T10 hollow. If you have a hollow too, don't worry about cracking it. On screws this small, cracking the bit isn't a concern. You will need to concern yourself with how thick the screwdriver is, however. The holes to access these screws are narrow, so it's possible some screwdrivers won't fit in here. I'll link to it in the description, but if you're buying this stick on Amazon, you'll see a screwdriver that works with it in the frequently bought together section. When you first go to remove these, they'll feel very stiff, possibly like you're doing something wrong, and I can't tell you why, but 8-Bit put glue in the holes with the screws. If I can get the camera to focus, I'll show you on one I take out. These narrow holes, torx screws, and glue have me totally confused. For a stick that touts being, and I quote, ultra moddable, these are all things I associate with companies trying to keep you out of their product. Alright, the bottom is off. You're going to see mine come off easily, but don't be surprised if yours is stiffer. Use consistent pressure and it will eventually separate. If you have a small flathead screwdriver, that can help separate the two halves if they're being particularly stubborn. Don't go yanking though, and you should see why in a moment here. There's a wire connecting the top and bottom halves. You can damage it if you go yanking too hard or abruptly. You can see it has little tabs on either side you can grip to pull out. This is another piece that's very stiff the first time. If it gives you trouble, use that small flathead again, wedge it under one tab, and slowly but firmly lift. I'm going to get the whole thing out of the way. The two sides are interchangeable, so you don't need to keep track of which side was plugged into top or bottom. Now that the wire's out, I can show you the metal plate easily. If you look closely, you can see it's not just one, but two of them in there. And this is where 90% of the stick's weight comes from. I'm going to set it off to the side because there's nothing else to do with it. Your stick will look slightly different inside because I've been in here before and moved things around. There's usually a small zip tie up in this corner, and more of these numbered tabs are on the wires, but nothing will be significantly different. Obviously, these wires are total spaghetti right now. I'm going to get that cleaned up later. I'll show you my method for wire management so it's easy to get back in here to work if you need to do more modding in the future. First thing you'll want to get off is the joystick because it is a pain to work around. Thankfully, regular Phillips heads hold this in place, so you want to get a small one of those alongside your torx. If you're paying very close attention, you'll notice I only take 3 screws out. That's because when I was in here previously poking around, I unmounted the stick and one of my screws must have been a dud. It completely stripped out trying to put it back in, so be careful. But if you experience something similar, don't panic. This joystick has been just fine with only 3 screws. Now, if I had more forethought, I would have done this part first, and now I'm having to do it with the joystick floating around. You can see there's space for a flathead on the bottom of the shaft. Use that to tighten or loosen the ball on the stick. Use the flathead to hold the shaft in place and twist the ball top off. It should break loose with little effort. Once you break it loose, you can hold the screw with your thumbnail and the ball comes right off. Alright, back here, the wires lift right out, unlike everything else so far. I'll bring this in for a closer look and hopefully the camera will focus. You can see these wires come soldered directly to the pins. This is the main reason I mentioned previously that I wasn't sure what this stick was a clone of. A Sanwa JLF has a 5-pin connector while this is an 8-pin. The form factor of the two is also obviously different. I'm going to go over changing the gate because based on Amazon sales, many people buy this intending to do just that. You can see I'd gone in and written on this with a metallic Sharpie previously. That's because nothing is holding the switches down beside this gate. I'm going to show you one way to do this with some colored electrical tape. The gate is tricky to get off overall. but there's something else to watch out for that will make it worse. I only have this one to go off, but mine had excess material left over from the casting on these tabs, so be on the lookout for that on your own. What I did was take a knife and run that along where the tab holds the gate down and cut the worst of the excess material off. If there's still any left, you can do detail work once the gate is off. This line with permanent marker came like this. I think I flipped the gate while taking it off once before. Whatever way yours comes, make a note of it. It's a good way to keep track of the orientation. You may be able to tell with my writing, but if not, on joysticks up and down are inverted. Alright, preamble out of the way, the color coding method. There's a convention for color coding directional wires. Up is orange, down is red, left is yellow, right is green. I'm going to wrap some colored electrical tape around each of these wires. I can see what I wrote previously. If you're doing this the first time, I'd recommend color coding before you take the stick out. It will be much easier to see which side is which. I'm going to work on getting the gate off. Like I mentioned before, it's trickier than a regular Sanwa gate anyway. Start by pushing 2 of the tabs in a corner and lifting up, but not all the way. Then, pick an opposite side to one of those tabs and lift it up a bit as well. Watch out for any one side going up much further than the others. This leads to a situation where 3 sides are off, but one is stuck down harder than it was before. If this happens, push the gate back down and start over. You can see those micro switches came right out, so like I said earlier, mark them somehow. It's a massive pain if they get scrambled up and you need to go figure out which was which. I'm putting a Sanwa octagonal gate on here. This seems to be a very popular upgrade from what I've seen. Just line it up with the tabs and push straight down. It's very simple. Alright, back on track and onto the buttons. I'm going to start disconnecting them up here with the macro buttons. I'm probably going to leave these unplugged because I'm personally just not interested in using them. I'm just going to bundle the wires up with some tape and get them out of the way. Now on to the main 30mm buttons. I'm setting the stick aside for a moment to just talk about the buttons themselves. So, these are Sanwa OBSF buttons. They aren't all identical here, I just care about the bodies of them, because I'm going to change the tops out on these for concave ones. Growing up in the US during the arcade era, concave buttons are nostalgic for me. I know some people really don't like them, but there are other reasons to open up buttons. For example, this is how you would put silencing pads in. There are little tabs on the side. Push the tab in and up. It should release most of the way. You can then angle your screwdriver in and push it out the rest of the way. You can then change out whatever you need. You can see I give these a little smack just to test and make sure they're moving how I expect. I'm now going to take these buttons out one by one and replace them. Line your snaps up and then give a good swift push. As you're putting the wires back in, push the button down, otherwise the bottom of the button will start moving on you. On this next button, you can see how there are a couple of buttons that don't leave any room for your fingers. The best method I've found is to use your flathead in place of one of them. That said, it's all the same from here on out, so I'm going to speed way up through the rest of this. Now while the buttons are in, I'm going to move on to the color coding. I have a color coding method for wires where I use the standard PC/Xbox button colors, plus a couple I just arbitrarily chose, but it's meaningful to me and that's all that matters. You can use mine, you can come up with your own method. What's important is you can tell wires apart whenever you want or need to get back in here. Next, I'm going to clean up the mess of wires running in here. It's more of the same, so I'm going to cut straight to the finished product. What I did was turn all these wires into ribbon cables more or less with some plain electrical tape. I think the end product here looks so much better. With the inside cleaned up, I'll have an easier time showing you changing the stick out. I have a plain, completely stock Sanwa JLF here. I figure this is the stick most people are going to want to put in if they want a different stick at all, so I wanted to show how you would put it into the case. Make sure you get the version with the flat plate if you haven't ordered already. All you need to do is line the holes up on the plate with the screw holes in the case. It should seat right where it needs to. You'll know if you got this if the joystick can hang in place like this. However, I personally want to use a different stick. It's an identical form factor, uses the same pin connector style, so you can still follow along if you're putting a JLF in. I'm going to be putting a Shimetsu LS5601 in. This is a stick Shimetsu made to work like a drop-in replacement for JLFs, so again, everything I'm about to do will be the same for a JLF. Something to be aware of, the threads on these screws are particular. If you're putting the screws in and it feels like it doesn't want to go, stop twisting, spin it back out. You can keep twisting in reverse until you feel the screw kind of pop down. When that happens, the thread is lined up and you can move forward. I'm going to put this custom ball top on. It goes on the same way it came off. You can use your fingernail to hold it still while you screw the top down, then lock it in place using the flathead, give it a firm twist, and you're good to go. So now the obvious question is how to connect this new joystick. The stick has a 5-pin connector, just like a JLF, but the one we took off was an 8-pin and it was all soldered on. I learned this trick from Joystick New York. He has an amazing YouTube channel, I'll link to it in the description, so absolutely go check him out. You can take a 5-pin adapter cable, you can get a pack of these on Amazon or buy them individually on Focus Attack. You can see it plug straight in. One thing I've done is cut off one of the little locking tabs on the side. You don't have to do this, but it will stop the pin housing from bowing out. If you want to do this, any decent knife will make quick work of it. Just practice basic knife safety and cut away from yourself. Now, just run the 5-pin adapter cable down here and plug it into the joystick. Next, I'm going to take a zip tie and bind it all together just to make it look cleaner. And that's about it. I think this looks way better inside than when we started. The only thing left to do is plug the two halves back into one another and close the case up. The screws can be a pain to get in. You have a long way to guide them down and the holes they need to get into are small. Wiggle them around, twist back and forth, and if it really won't go in, move on to a different one. Sometimes just having the other ones screwed down seems to make the stubborn ones easier. That's all good to go now. I'll run a microfiber cloth over this to clean it up, and this is the finished product. Alright, it just wouldn't feel right to try and close this video out without doing a little bit of gameplay with the stick that I just modified right here in my lap. If you watch the last video, you can see that I've definitely changed this up. Let me know if this works better. I think it was kind of hard to understand what was going on the stick in the first video, and so I've done some work with the camera to rotate it around and hopefully get a better view. I do have some other ideas, so if this still isn't it, let me know. Alright, let's go down and do some training, just to show the stick off. I've been learning Akira lately, so I'm gonna go ahead and play her. And I obviously have to choose the yellow and green.
Let's fight!
Alright, we'll just pick Ken because he's always... Alright, let me try some Akira combos out here. Do the push. Right. That's good. EX Tiger Knee. Good. Then we do the V trigger. Boom. Well, that felt great. I really like how this feels down here. The Shimetsu stick is a little bit different. Obviously, that's something I chose to do, that you don't have to follow. It has little metal levers on top of the micro switches. What that does is it makes Dragon Punch motions a lot easier. Anything that involves corners is a lot easier, but you lose a little bit of the cardinals. So, quarter circle back motions, a little bit tighter on any of the cardinals involved. Okay, but having said that, I'm really happy with how this came out. This stick feels really good. Very happy with how it performed. I definitely like experimenting with new things, so the Shimetsu stick definitely satisfied that for me. These are obviously now actual Sanwa OBSFs. I thought the clone versions originally were good, but I can definitely feel the step up in quality now. And I think the concave buttons add a really nice touch to the kind of retro aesthetic that this already has going. So yeah, with all that said, thank you again for joining me in another video. Go ahead and do all the stuff that YouTube likes you to click down here. And I have some more videos in mind. Some will be like this, a few others are going to be more focused on gameplay. Maybe I'm eventually going to start streaming too. So if you like all of this, go ahead. Like I said, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great one. Bye.